Was reflecting a lot recently on what the meditation space has become for me over time, where at the beginning of my practice, it was really a place of pain, because there was this idea that it was supposed to be a particular way, or I was supposed to be doing something in a particular way to get it to be a certain quality of ease or quietness. And it was really difficult to come to meditation and want to do it again and again. And recently, one of the realizations that I had is that in the meditation space is the only place, one of the very few places where I can be completely myself without having to defend against or take on a persona or accommodate or, do all of these strategies that the moment there's another person, or even if there's not another person, if I'm just left alone in my house, there's this sense of anxiety. It's like a low-grade anxiety that there is something that I need to be making happen. And that has accompanied me into the meditation practice. But recently, one of the views that I took on is the freedom and the deliciousness and the restfulness that comes from just being able to be my undefended self is precious. And from this standpoint, it is a refuge of safety. And what would it be like if within this refuge of safety, I really surrendered over to releasing all of the different aspects of myself that I keep in tight control, that I am perpetually managing, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And this is at letting all thoughts come through without trying to make them slow down or go away, or without trying to yank my attention and put it on something else, without trying to do anything. What if I had the full permission to just let go of everything and experience what it's like to be completely out of control and to see for myself that I'm not going to be annihilated the moment I let go of all of that control? And again, there's very few places that I can do this. And sometimes even within the meditation space, depending on what is going on for me, it still might not be safe enough to completely come undone. In particular, if my inner critic is very awake and alive in there. And the conclusion that I have arrived at is that instead of trying to tame the inner critic, I think I saw that as a title of a book that was out there. What if I were to allow and accept every aspect of myself as if I were like a mother looking at an innocent child, whether they are acting out or whether they're having a tantrum? What would it be like to know that they're just going through their thing and that I could just offer them the space to do that without trying to make it into anything, without trying to pull them away from that experience, without trying to interfere to help or make it better. And what I discovered through this is that I was able to taste at an experiential level what it is like to be accepted. What is it like to be on the receiving end of that grounded, loving presence, which we all have inside of us, which is available in a moment of compassion. It arises naturally. And when we're able to see our aspects and be with the pain and be with the grief for the other that's going through that, for the part that's acting out, compassion naturally arises. And to me, this is the heart of self-compassion. It's not a technique that we apply to cultivate or generate. It's something that effortlessly arises in us when we're able to be with all aspects of ourselves and allow and just accept. And it's not a renunciation or submission or a resignation. It's the acceptance that comes from something much larger. And when I'm connected to that much larger part of myself, there is a real felt sense of safety. Because I realize that within myself, there is the capacity to hold anything. And that safety that I viscerally, experientially get to feel unwinds the conditioning, not by me trying to modify again behavior or to try to become a particular way, but the safety naturally allows me to relax. And the natural defense strategies, which I'm just going to call collectively as our conditioning, those start to loosen their grip. And when the energy that was being used to maintain those defense strategies are no longer needed, that energy becomes available back to ourselves. And there is not just a sense of safety, but a sense of vibrancy, a sense of connection, a sense of aliveness, of vividness that is possible, which again serves to further nurture this space. This has been my experience. Counterintuitively, it's not something I can produce, because the moment I go into my meditation, trying to allow everything to happen and trying to accept things as they come along, there's already this kind of pushing or this contraction or this movement that no longer has the authenticity of what was naturally arising. And so I go into the meditation with as much tenderness as I have available. And I just be with. I just be with. Be with the discomfort. Be with the thought that doesn't stop. I acknowledge. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you for your insistence so that I know, so that I can see what's underneath. I'm here to see. I surrender. Tell me what you want to say. Show me what you want me to feel. I am committed to this relationship. I am committed to taking care of you in a way that you deeply yearn to be cared for, in a way that you get to have this. If it didn't come the way you wanted it the first time around, I will offer that to you. And I can experience what it's like to love wholeheartedly without worrying about what my impact is on the other or how they're going to take it. Without worrying about being misunderstood or that I'm too much. I have the freedom to let go of withholding, any withholding in my heart. And I can give that self over completely to the parts that show up. And so there is a giving and a receiving that no longer is so distinct. It just becomes this field. There's just this field of allowing, of acceptance, of interest, of care, of just beingness, of enoughness. And as a result of that, there is a satiation that I'm able to land into that is irrefutable and that nothing from the external world can offer me this level of depth, of freedom, of satiation, of connection that is reliable. It is reliable because it's not coming from the external world. It's not dependent on others being a particular way or the circumstances of my life having to fall in a particular configuration. It's available. It's co-created between me and myself. And this is the beginning of the self-repair, the repair of respect, the repair of trust that was broken as we came into the world and were told that our way was not the way and that there was a different way. And innocently, we followed the other way, whether that be to feel accepted or to belong, or because we trusted those individuals, whatever the reason, but there was a breach. There was a breach in our innate self-trust, that unquestionable going for out of the sheer delight or the listening to the spontaneous, intuitive response. This was the beginning of our using accommodation and self-sacrifice as a defense strategy against the threat of being outcasted or rejected or misunderstood or endangered because we were different. And so my experience, my recent experience is that until that self-trust, until that self-connection is reestablished, is healed, I'm going to continue re-engaging in my defense mechanisms. And what my defense mechanisms do is they create separation. They separate me from what's actually happening. They separate me from other people because I am withholding or I am creating something that is not. And so I am not in alignment with what's actually true. And the pervasive sense of being in those defense mechanisms, while they might help in the immediate, is just this pervasive residue of something just doesn't feel right. I'm not safe. And I'm not safe because I'm not living in connection with what's actually happening. Part of myself is shut off. And that is incredibly unsafe because if I don't have the fullness of myself, how can I actually perceive what's happening around me so that I can keep myself safe? So it's this perpetual cycle that we fall into, which is I feel unsafe. And so my automatic defense mechanisms that I picked up and developed and that were very useful and still are useful when I was a child in giving me immediate relief, that is the thing that keeps me in a perpetual state of unsafety. And I missed that. I missed that connection, that insight or that understanding. And of course, in a defense state, my reaction is I'm going to blame. I'm feeling this way because something out there is happening that's causing me to feel this way. Or I'm feeling this way because somebody in the past did this thing that made me feel this way. And there's just this ultimate powerlessness to link how I am feeling with something that's outside of myself because I can't change what's outside of myself. And so I'm locked in the state of being a victim. And there's the feeling, the oppressive feeling of like helplessness, and then the fatigue because I keep trying the defense mechanisms and they're not working, but I don't know what else to do. And it's just this feeling of like ultimate powerlessness. And the key to the freedom is the viewpoint. And the viewpoint is that it's not about what's actually happening outside, it's about how we're relating to what's happening. And that's where we have choice. And where the mindfulness comes in is that the mindfulness allows us to start to finesse our awareness so that we can see more clearly. We can see the nature of delusion, of the stories that we believe. We can see or maybe even taste that there's these other momentary states of safety that I experience throughout the day. I can see what are the qualities of the conditions that lead to that state. And I can choose to incorporate more of those qualities in my life so that I can experience more frequently the state of safety. And the safer that I feel, the more awareness I have available and the more skillful choices I'm going to make. And the more skillful choices that I make, the more my external world now starts to have that element of safety. Because the people, the events, the experiences that I have are imbued from the wisdom that came from that place of safety. And that this external reality that I start to create resonates more and more with what it is that I am yearning for inside. I say all of this to you. This is just my experience. We all have different experiences. But it's led to an incredible amount of freedom and a relaxing of the armor around the heart. And that has brought so much love, connection, incredible experiences, as well as the person that I have become when I set down those defense strategies is so mysterious and surprising. You can think of it like, what would it be like to have a child that is just given unconditional love as they develop into the world? It doesn't matter what they experience, they have that as a reference point. They're more willing to risk. They're more willing to experiment. They're more willing to connect. And so the outcome of that is going to be very different than a child that did not receive that. We are that child. We are. We can offer that unconditional love. You're also the parent. We can be both. And so I just share this as a reference point and see if you're in the spirit of experimentation. You can play around with that view, see what the impact is in your meditation. Deeply believe that we can heal our own black sheep, because we all have been judged and cast aside and controlled and at the receiving end of violence, every one of us. And every one of us is that child underneath all the armor. And I really think we deserve a second chance. And I know that I for sure don't want to leave this life without seeing who that child would grow up to be. I really don't. And so that's my responsibility as a parent. I get to do it again. All of that care and love that I pour and put in other people, hoping that they will appreciate or become a certain way. You know, what if I took even half of that and just gave it back to myself? And there's something really magical about this satiation, you know, of like receiving so much love and care and acceptance from within, is there's no longer that tension of wanting it from the outside. And so that completely changes all of the interactions. because it doesn't matter what somebody says or how they behave. I don't need them to meet that yearning. I can do that for myself. So they're free. And they feel that. There's a change in the dynamics of the relationships in our lives and also the interactions we have when we're not wanting or needing anything from anybody else. And so in turn, that safety becomes available to them too. And they're able to relax and they're able to let go of their defense mechanisms, and we get to see a little bit more of them. And I really feel that this is how, as a collective, this isn't just, we talk about self-connection or self-care as something selfish. This really is for the collective. Not because we're trying to change the collective, but because when we are internally satiated, people can recognize that and they're able to relax. Taking care of yourself is a radical choice for the collective whole. It's a win-win. It benefits all beings.